So I started the question and answer today, our first question of the day, by talking about the situation where we are finding out just now, based on a study that came out this week, that absentee rates have gone, they've reached a level now in Quebec, our kids, the same as it was during the middle of the pandemic. Now, and I've read a couple of your texts. I read one that blamed teachers for, or just wanted to remind us, by the way, teachers are not, blameless in this. Remember, they went on strike. They didn't seem to care about kids missing more school. Okay, that's a discussion we can have on another day. For now, the problem is, how do we deal with this? And what do we do to change this? The education minister came out the other day, talked about the fact that, hey, parents, it's important to send your kids to school. This is on you. And if you're having trouble getting this done for whatever that reason may be, maybe consider social services, which is, again, as I said, then not very helpful. What does that mean, consider social services? And what if those services aren't available? Then what? So I wanted to get more on this, but I want to play the report we had from Christine Long, because I think this kind of puts it into perspective, and then come back and talk to Katherine Korakakis, who's president of the English Parents Committee Association, because, again, this is all pointing at parents. So here's Christine's report, and then we'll talk to Katherine Korakakis.
According to La Presse, Ministry of Education statistics show in the first week of April, 9.5% of students in public, elementary, and secondary schools were absent, almost as many as during the pandemic. In January, they conducted a survey on students' well-being and quality of life. 14,000 parents responded. Public health experts who worked on the survey calculated what they call quality of life, with a score of 100 considered excellent. But the average score for Quebec students was 64%. In an email to CTV, the Lester B. Pearson School Board says they're very aware of the issue of student absenteeism and are taking a proactive approach in terms of addressing the issue. In the school board's Commitment to Success plan, one of their objectives is to reduce these absences by 10% by the 2026-2027 school year. This is part of the plan to improve effectiveness at meeting academic needs of diverse learners. When asked about the increase in student absenteeism, the education minister said ultimately it's up to the parents to decide if children are well enough to be in class.
Okay. Ultimately, it's up to the parents to decide if students are well enough to be in class. It's that well enough part, by the way, that has me a little confused. I'm not suggesting that there are students who, obviously for reasons, be they, mental issues, be they health issues, not go to school. That's always been the case. Where's the main reason, though, for this? They can't all be suffering right now. So why has this suddenly become okay? As one teacher said, seeing students who regularly just choose to go 3 or 4 days a week. Do their parents not know? If they do know, do they not care? Katherine Korakakis is president of the English Parents Committee Association. Okay, Katherine, parent, all the other parents. First of all, tell me what you think about what the minister had to say.
I was very curious to hear his remarks. And by the way, the study everybody's referencing, that's a study we launched with public health experts. And the fact that we had 14,000 parents answer the survey is an indicator in of itself. Mm-hmm. What we have found throughout the findings is that mental health is at a critical rise, right? It was bad before the pandemic, but mental health issues in children have skyrocketed. But the resources have not. It's very difficult to access resources, as you pointed out before. I was listening to you speak before, and I listened to other speakers, and there seems to be this narrative that parents are going on vacation or parents don't care. Parents don't know what to do. Parents have been asking for help for years. There needs to be more done, and in order for that to happen, I'm not passing the buck on parents. What I'm saying is all educational stakeholders have to come together. Parents being a part of the educational stakeholder system, they're one of the most important pieces. But so are teachers, so are administrators, and so are the students. And the government plays a role as well. So I think that if we're going to be serious about education and educational success, then we need to be serious about it. And one of the things is prioritizing and finding ways to deal with this epidemic of mental health issues.
Okay, I now see this is interesting to me because, as I said, I'm trying to draw a line here between mental health issues and basically a change in perception with respect to school being important enough that you want to go to school, or parents realizing that it's important enough that you need to go to school. The mental health issue, not saying it's not an issue, clearly it is, and you're pointing that out. So the problem I see with that is, as you just said, and as I alluded to, okay, you recognize your child has a mental health issue, maybe the parent does. Where are those social services? Because all I keep hearing is it's impossible to access them.
Yes, there's long waiting lists, but I just want to say something else. Motivation goes hand in hand with mental health. You can't separate the two. If somebody is not motivated to school, something's wrong. Children don't just wake up, or parents don't just wake up and say, I don't care about my children, okay? And for the most part, that doesn't happen. Something else happens. And don't forget the crisis after crisis that we have lived in Quebec. And most notably, the whole time the schools were closed. That was another crisis. That's why we launched the survey, to take a pulse to see where we were at as a society, where parents were at in terms of well-being, after living one thing after another. And I have to tell you, yes, parents are critical. We need support. It's super important.
So again, I'm trying to understand this, or a broader context here, if you will. Can I, Catherine, just leave the mental health issue just aside for 1 second,
Okay.
and then ask, okay, look, I get the part about parents taking their kids out of school. They don't want to go during spring break. To a couple of callers who said, in my generation, that never would have happened, but that's fine. That was then. This is now. Things are different. I understand that. But this idea of telling parents, and maybe I'm wrong here, I'm saying to my parents and to those from, I guess, a generation ago, going to school was the most important thing you could do. It was get an education, everything else will fall into place. And I don't know if you even have a sense of this, and maybe it's something you can't measure, but I seem to get the idea now that it, for many parents, is not the most important thing to deal with their children. Is that unfair to say?
No, it's unfair, and it's not true. What I've been trying to say, maybe not eloquently enough, is that parents are lacking the tools and the resources to get through to their kids. It's not a parent decision. It's not parents saying education is not important or educational success is not important. It is. But what has happened with all these crises and the rise of mental health, you cannot separate the two. Increased violence in school. Just open the TikTok, open any app, and you'll see violence in schools. You'll see absenteeism. That's all related to everything that has happened in society the last couple of years, and no real measures to deal with it. Another thing, pandemic, right? And there was no catch-up plan. Children lost learning, and we never got up to date with where we needed to go. There was never a ministerial directive to say, okay, we lost all this learning, and now what are we doing to help children catch up? All of this plays a part. Things don't work in silos, right? So if you don't feel smart enough because you've lost all those the learning. The learning stayed the same, and the questions stayed the same. The exams stayed the same. They weren't worth the same, but they were still the same. You missed all kinds of school, right? Then you were sitting on a couch the whole pandemic. You didn't learn how to speak to friends. You don't know how to make friends. This whole thing, everything is interrelated. And it's not fair to say parents are just taking their children to go on vacation. Most parents don't have the money to do that.
I'm wondering then, as I hear you say that, it sounds like an unfixable problem. If we didn't deal with it then, this is 3-4 years ago now, we're dealing with a pandemic. You're probably right. I agree with you that there should have been a plan in place for how do we recover. There wasn't, which is, then again, it's first time we dealt with a pandemic in 100 years. What can be done to catch up? Can we even think to catch up?
I think you can, and I think that the government realizes this now in the educational stakeholders, and I think we all have to work together. And again, parents have to be an integral part of the solution. So do teachers, so do educators, and so do students. We have to sit down and come up with a plan. And even what you said before, advertising about why it's so important to go to school, all the great things that are happening in schools. Many times all we're reporting is on all like the bad things, but there are great things happening in schools. There are miracles happening in schools, and we have awesome teachers and awesome schools. So also shedding light on that, making education cool again is something that needs to happen as well. Absolutely.
That's a great phrase, by the way, making education cool again. That's one of those things. So when I talked about an awareness campaign, that's in essence what it is, right? If kids think it's cool, then kids will go.
Yes.
We know that.
Yes.
Right. That's kind of a social media phenomenon. We want to do what we think is cool.
Yes, and also don't forget that education is a dinosaur industry, right? It's the only industry that hasn't been innovated. We're still teaching children the way we did, 1,000 years ago. There's a teacher in the front and they're talking. It's also time to disrupt education a little bit and maybe involve the young people into finding a new way of teaching, and disrupting this whole industry. I think it's important.
You hold out hope?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's encouraging, I guess. Given as, you're sitting and talking to parents all the time. If there's hope there, it's good to know.
Hope.
Katherine, thank you so much. I always appreciate you taking the time for us.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Katherine Korakakis, president of the English Parents Committee Association. I don't know. It seems to me like a pretty big problem. I don't know that you fix something like this. What do they say? It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. The kids are doing this now. How do we begin to even change that around? But to her point, how about a plan to begin with? That seems like a reasonable solution.